Hello everyone, and welcome to the AuditNet training series. Today's webinar, The Path to Continuous Auditing, Make Your Audit Work Repeatable, is being presented by AuditNet and SmartCats, and our presenter is Don Sparks. I'm Jim Kaplan, founder and owner of AuditNet, and I'll be moderating today's webinar. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the founder of AuditNet with a background as a Chief Audit Executive, Internet for Auditors pioneer, and an auditor who believes and promotes the use of audit technology. Before we proceed to our presentation, I'd like to remind everyone of the housekeeping rules. The housekeeping rules are available as a handout download. I have also sent the rules via email to your registered address, and you should have a copy of those housekeeping rules. In the interest of time, I'll not read the rules, but everyone is expected to review and adhere to them for this and all AuditNet webinars. Some important items to note. We are recording today's webinar. If you're a subscriber or site license user and you meet the CPE criteria, you will receive a CPE email within 5 to 7 business days with the link to download your certificate if you requested CPE. If you're not a subscriber or a site license user or did not request CPE and qualify, there is a processing fee to add your name to the CPE list. You must answer all the polling questions during the live session. There will be 6 polling questions today, one approximately every 20 minutes, so please be patient. Wait for the polling questions. If you need to take a break, the best time to take a break is right after a polling question. So with that, let me now turn the floor over to Don Sparks so that he can provide his background, share with you his experience and knowledge for today's topic. Don?
Well, thank you, Jim, for that introduction. And a little bit about me is basically I think we can all agree that today we live in an automated world. There's virtually nothing that isn't automated. Laptops that could originally hold 5 or 10 megabytes was pretty much where I started in auditing, and of course today you have laptops with over a terabyte of hard drive storage and plus some. So like I said, laptops did not exist when I started. Everything I have done and a lot of what I'm going to be showing you I learned on an IBM 360 way back when. So try getting an IBM 360 on an airplane. Obviously it was impossible. So that meant you could go out, travel during the week, and come back home and work in the home office on the mainframe. Things have really changed. So let me move right on into my presentation. So it seems to, that throughout my career, it seems like I had to change my audit approach on a regular basis. So today the focus is pretty much on innovative. The people that monitor the industry and do surveys with your board and management are coming in through with the need to be, auditors need to be more, quote, creative and, in fact, innovative. When I started in auditing a long time ago, the focus was to be more integrated. That is operational, financial, and IT skill sets all in one. Government compliance was not that big a deal, was not even referred to that much, and so that's what integrated. I've heard a lot of people talking about it today where they're compliance focused and they want to integrate into operational and financial and IT. So that phase, though, evolved into becoming more efficient and effective during the push for enterprise-wide risk management, and for those of you that remember, the TQM, Total Quality Management days. A lot of things got downsized, a lot of decision-making got changed during TQM. But in those days, it was pretty much we focused on hitting the key issues and getting in, get it done, and get out. That theme continues today, but shortly after the TQM days, we had to become risk consultants. We needed to find a way to add value and, of course, be relevant to the organization. So, however, one of the things that has stayed the same, members of your audit committee still subscribe to fool me once, shame on management, fool me twice, shame on internal audit. Old saying, but it's very applicable to what I'm going to be talking about today. So today's presentation will just focus on a small portion of your auditing activities, basically how to sell auditing recommendations when management does not see audit's point of view. And of course, I'm taking a kind of an automated system focus on that. So here's some of the questions that you definitely should be able to answer at the end of this, and I'm going to show a lot of that, but I'm going to show you an awful lot more. So we've got 60 slides here to go through. So I'm going to kind of intertwine definitions and resources throughout. I am going to show a quick case study that was published by the Institute of Internal Auditors 5 years ago, and of course it's one of my real life experiences. Then we're going to kind of go through the process of moving to a continuous audit. So we're going to go through ad hoc, or some people call it disposable programming. I'm going to show you how to make it repeatable. We're going to talk about what centralized means, and I'll actually be able to show you in the process how that's done with the tool that I use. And then, of course, the live demonstration to take us through the whole 2 hours, and I'll leave time for questions and answers. You provide the questions, I'll come up with the answers. So just to get started, this is kind of what a very high-level typical issue-solving process looks like. I would hope that 90 to 95% of your audit work complies with this, and your suggestions and issues are readily accepted and quickly moved, to an issue closed. But so obviously I said we're going to focus on a small portion. We're going to talk about what do you do when management just doesn't see your point of view. So that's polling question number 1. There's no right or wrong answers to these. I just want to kind of get a feeling for who I'm talking to right now.
We'll leave the poll open for approximately 1 minute. You must answer all of the polling questions in order to qualify for CPE today. So, Don, we'll just wait another 30 seconds or so. Remember, there's not a right or wrong answer here. It's just a matter of making sure that you're paying attention, answering the polling questions.
And earning CPE.
And earning CPE. We have 91% have voted. We'll leave it open for another 10 seconds or so. We're at 94%. Okay. We're going to be closing the polls in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Polls are closed. Share the results. And can you see those results, Don?
No.
Okay.
Do I need to push the arrow?
No, you should be okay. It looks like 83% said that they're using ACL, IDEA, or Excel. And then a small percent are using Teammate Analytics. And then 6% said our audits do not cover examining underlying data.
Okay.
So I'll go ahead and hide the result.
Using visualization tools?
1%.
1%.
1%. Okay.
Okay. Well,
Back to you.
like I said, there's no right or wrong answer, but it looks like I'm hitting the majority of you right in category A, ACL, IDEA, or Excel, and then, of course, there's Excel add-ins, but okay. Move on. Okay, so this is kind of, it's not one of my actual boardrooms, but obviously in my career, 15 years of it as a chief audit executive, I spent a lot of time in the boardroom. And if you're not spending a lot of time in the boardroom, I'm curious, where you're getting your direction. But starting in 1986, the board of directors moved me to administratively direct reporting to the CEO. That was a good news, bad news. The good news was I could no longer travel on Mondays because Monday morning was, as we called it, the roll call, and I needed to be there. And for the most part, it was very valuable to hear the issues of the day and then listen to the other C-suite people. So I got a good understanding of what they did know and what they did not know, and whether or not their understanding of processes were even in the ballpark. So with that information, I always shared that with my staff and of course any relevant audits we were working on, and we immediately started to figure out what would the management team consider to be important, and that helped bring the right points up. Sometimes those points were good situations. They just had a complete erroneous understanding of how a process was working. Obviously, a lot of those people kind of did their evaluations based on the grapevine, or so they were not actually going out there and looking at the issues. I've done some consulting work in the last year, and I see that same pattern even today. So, but here's a tool that I learned with my first company. And so I was straight out of college, and I learned how to profile the client. And this president of this company, which had about 2,700 people, he liked to do at the end of your 6 weeks training program to get to know the company. And of course it was an insurance company, so at night we had to memorize sections of the insurance policy and the next day write it. But anyway, that would keep us out of trouble. But he liked to focus on finding people that would accept some responsibility for an issue, the fourth one, and of course his ideal employees would actively work to solve the problem. He felt it was his job to find people that spent the bulk of their time in the ignore the issue, deny that it's a problem, and of course if they were in a corner, blame somebody else, not my problem, don't need to worry about it. So that was, I hate to say it, almost 40 years ago, but Don Bitts was the president, and I remember that presentation almost as if it was given to me yesterday. I find by having one of my staff in the meetings, I have them with the list of attendance, and as each issue changes, you'll notice that this structure changes. Some of the staff are concerned about things closer to home and could care less about something that's happening in the operations next door or next town or next state. So it changes, and you have to be, but when you leave that meeting and you sit down, you know who you've got on your side and who you don't. If you can't engage the management into a discussion, you may have to do this one-on-one, but I found that even in a meeting, try it sometime and see what you get. So that is a great takeaway right there off the bat. Another thing that, again, kind of answering some things you need is you actually need to line yourself up with some great mentors. And I'm going to share my great mentor that lends to this. My first IT audit director was a founder of the EDPAA. He lived in Carroll Stream, Illinois. His name was Jerry Myers, and his side manager was Rich Jones. And they, I knew very little about data analytics. I practically knew nothing about data analytics. And after my first audit, I was convinced I needed to find a different discipline, so I wanted to talk to the HR. Anyway, Jerry and Rich convinced me that data analytics isn't that tough. Now remember, we're using an IBM 360. Within 3 days, they had me up and running and actually doing analysis and pulling up reports that disclose a lot of discrepancies from good practice or even policy. We actually were finding frauds within the first month. So those were different days for a different time, but so you need to find who you can use. The IC, the information system staff, of course, that they're always good. I honestly would not waste my time taking them out for coffee. I reported to the CEO. If that wasn't enough weight, I didn't need to take them to coffee and coerce them into anything. There's certainly within your company chief operations officers, compliance officers. I loved working with our legal people. They were all mentors in the early days. The one thing that I had to watch working with mentors is they would try to turn my focus based on their experience and not totally unaware of why I was even pushing in a particular direction. I'll share a quick faux pas. Jerry Myers was very proud of the fact that he could generate a data dump of an entire claim data set, and he could get 40 lines per page on a green bar paper. 40 lines. And so each line was 4 lines deep, and of course the heading lined up. But I wanted to do sampling, and I didn't want to copy the items selected onto a 14 or 21 column work paper. I actually did with the items that were selected by the system, I actually put a page break. He went bonkos over that. What a waste of time and paper. Anyway, so stay focused. So, okay, signs of innovative auditing. I will say I like a Nike commercial that's been running lately. Of course, I'm from Chicago. It starts with Michael Jordan as to what motivated him the most, and he puts off a quick phrase, a couple more sports people, and then they get down to Matty Ice, the quarterback, Matt Ryan of the Atlanta Falcons. And he said, when they asked him, what motivates you, he said, defeat. And at first time I heard it, I said, that is dumb. And then it sunk in. He's saying the best motivator of being innovative is overcome the barriers and obstacles in front of you. So conducting the audit just like you did last year, let's face it, 80% of the time, even 90%, that's probably a good way to go. But if you're moving into automated and you really want to know what's going on, you need to start your question with why not? Why can't we create a process that determines the expected result and compare the expected results to the production process? That starts your thinking towards being innovative. You start thinking, what could we be doing that could save a lot of time, less costly, faster, and more results? So I hope I'm I'm preaching to the choir, but I'm throwing that out. Since we're going to talk about continuous, I threw kind of a generic continuous audit implementation steps. A little later I'm going to show you a framework that I like much better, but this gets you thinking towards the continuous audit. You know, what's the priority? Is anybody already monitoring and or auditing that? What are the rules? What is the criteria? Determining the process frequency, is it hourly, daily, monthly, quarterly, all those types of things, and then communicating results. Obviously, you need to always question your process, always question your results, and if you can create a couple of different ways to recreate the work with an automated tool, I would always run that before I would march right into, in my case, administratively was the CEO. Before I started communicating, I wanted to make certain my audit staff and I were protected and we actually knew what we were doing. So, and another one, I'm going to reiterate this a little later too, but always track your benefits. Even if you don't think anybody cares, track the benefits. You need to make certain that you're getting somewhere with your automated and or regular audit work. It could be financial or non-financial. In the first days that I started with analytics and automated the sample, I immediately just cut a week to 2 off of every audit without leaving the headquarters, which was in downtown Chicago in the Red Building. It was amazing that now all of a sudden when you went into an office, you already had your sample, you already had the information. If you bothered to look at it on the way over, you already had a list of questions that you wanted to start in with. So we totally flipped the way we were doing work. Before that, my first audit, Detroit, 8 weeks, out Sunday, back Friday. We started, had an opening conference for an hour and a half, and then went into a conference room with data dumps and blank paper and an audit program that was cut and taped together, so full of holes. So for me, my excitement was, holy cow, I don't have to spend 8 weeks in this city or 7 in the others. We immediately started looking at everything we were doing and determining if it had a business objective, we wanted to do it. So I am kind of a pack rat. I did work on the IIA data analytics report that was published at the same time, but here's one from ISACA that I love. And I've taken some liberties, very little, but I call it continuous because when you really read the paper, and I suggest you do that, you'll see very quickly that they used continuous auditing, continuous monitoring as kind of one and the same. Now, I've done enough presentations and discussed about continuous monitoring. Continuous monitoring can be an auditor's job if it's an important objective and nobody else is doing the monitoring. Even for risk assessment, nobody's doing it. So, in my opinion, what separates the two is CA for continuous auditing. CM means continuous management. Management must not only monitor, they must develop corrective action plans and take action. So I don't realize, I kind of know how the profession got all tied up in CA, CM. I think what CM has always meant to me is, oh, that's the management's job. So anyway, here's that white paper. It is packed. It follows the outline that I'm using. This is written by a lot of professionals in the profession, and it's a very good paper, and we're going to follow it, so I'm not going to spend much more time on it. So let me get back to my slide deck. And so I took another liberty with it. To me, ad hoc work is average. if you can start to think repeatable, one, your opinion in your chief auditor's mind is going to go up because he's saying, I can take credit and say we're getting some value out of that tool or the process. If you get centralized where you've got a flow of data, we're going to talk about it in more detail, I say you're getting good. And if you want to truly be a world class, you'll actually start getting routine audit processes in the continuous, running on a clock or running on a regular schedule, or just being able to hit a panel and invoke the action in a continuous manner. Those, would definitely separate you and, in my opinion, world class. Is everything going to be made continuous? No, I covered that already. But once you start getting continuous, your heavy hitter auditors can start to move to new territory, and up and coming auditors can take over the workload. It's programmed, it's locked in, it's got the business rules embedded, it's good to go. So a couple of things from the Institute of Internal Auditing. If you don't have an elevator speech, I always use, and it's interesting, the 2120 has not changed that much, although in 2009, I think it was, or 2010, 2120A2, the fraud was actually entered into the standards. Most of this has been the same. Achievement of the organization's strategic objectives is kind of new. It's always used to years ago it said policies and procedures and directions of management. It's now auditors have a role and responsibility for that. The second one is where most auditors will give me a lot of kickback. Reliability and integrity of financial and operational information. What is information? It's organized data. If you're not looking at data, I really wonder, how are you complying with that? Or are you in the blame others? Oh, that's IT's responsibility, their QA function, not my job. So I won't dwell on this, but this was my elevator speech. I had my own way of saying it, but if somebody at the board asked me, just why is audit in the room? What do you do? We don't see anything from you. And I say, well, you want to know? And if they say yes, I gave them my speech, and this is exactly, maybe not word for word, but this is what I told them, I did. I could stop with the first paragraph, and if they just wanted a quick answer, evaluate risk, but that's basically the elevator speech. The one that's even more relevant to what we're talking about today is, what is the responsibility of the chief audit executive when management, let's say, is pushing back? They have a more polite way of saying it, has accepted a level of risk that may be unacceptable to the organization. What are you going to do? The chief audit executive must discuss the matter with senior management. Always discuss, that's a given. Always discuss your results. Don't ever run to a board audit committee if you have not first discussed it with the management team. They're going to ask that first question. Who did you discuss that with? Who? Why can't this make sense to me? Why isn't this being done? Over the years, I had some heavy hitters, CEOs and CFOs of Fortune 100 companies, and they were always looking for an opportunity to take an audit issue and wrap it around some C-suite, especially the CEO's neck, to say, that wouldn't fly at our company. I'm really surprised that you will accept that at yours. So we're up to another polling question. Again, there's no right or wrong answer. Jim will push that up there.
And we have the second polling question up there. How does your function handle situations where management does not accept your conclusions? So please answer the polling question. We'll leave it up there for about a minute. Then we will close the poll, share the results, and then turn it back to Don. If you have any questions, please use the chat box. There's a question there. You can just send a chat message, and I'm monitoring those questions, and I'll pass them along to Don when we get questions that he can answer. Okay, we'll leave it open for about another 20 seconds. 87% have voted. Remember, if you want CPE for today, you must answer all the polling questions. Please register your vote now. And we will go ahead and close the poll. Share the results. Don, it looks pretty even. We obtain a response by going over their head, 49%. We take the issue directly to the audit committee chair, 38%, and then small amounts under 10% for the other two, for B and C.
That is shocking. That is shocking. But it is what it is. I would be more tempted to go with C. How many people went with C?
6%.
Okay. So, you know, the quarterly report to the audit committee is kind of an arbitrary. It doesn't say you have to send every issue you worked in the last 3 months to that committee. I would make note that we were spending time there, but I would say when we have conclusive report, we'll give it to you. If I could give them 90% of the report, I would give it and say a couple of items are being held out. They always wanted to know, and I said I refuse to discuss it until I have a conclusive agreement with the management, because you might be wrong, and giving it to the audit committee, they're going to call them in the room and say, look, I don't have anything to do next week. I'm going to cancel my flight back. I'm going to sit here and help you get this done. So I never wanted to be in that, but, you know, things change. I would never change on that. Everybody always wants to know, what are you finding and all that stuff, but honestly, they weren't going to get it from me. Okay, so I said I had a case study. And now you know who David Arnold is. And that's not the name of the insurance company either. So it was changed to kind of make things fit. But basically, at this company that I had worked at for 12 years before I even learned of this, the sales team was hiding credit balances and accounts receivable. They were hiding the credit balances and holding them to use to buy another account and not return the money to the insured. Now, these are commercial insurance companies, and the average annual premium, this is property casualty, was $500,000 at that time, and the average number of locations was 1,000. So think of any company of that size. What are they doing all the time? They're adding stores, they're closing stores, and that all has to run through the insurance. So we found a $53,000 check sitting in a field office. Now, a couple of my staff people said, not our problem. External auditors audit that, and they just didn't even make a copy of it, and they put it back, but they did note the work papers. That night I'm looking at the work papers. I said, what? It's been here for 2 months. Where did it come from? What's it for? They go, we don't know. We don't look at the checks. I said, sure we do. We have to look at the check. Anyway, discussion with the team, with the management there. 1, they didn't ask for it, and 2, they weren't going to deliver it, and they didn't care what happened to that check. It could rot in the safe for all they cared. I took it back to the home office, and so you can see here, all the processes we went through. There are other things. The most frequent question I get is, how could this happen? I usually say, well, it did. But so, and even a more interesting thing, now this is kind of old, I refused and resigned, but not before I included my latest findings. So the management team was trying to offer me any position that I wanted in a newly merged company within reason if I would not give that report to the audit committee. Again, I did not give findings to the audit committee till I was in agreement with the management, and they fought this tooth and nail and even pulled the external audit partners in, and they were just blown away, and I have their comment in there. But anyway, so this is what happened, but we learned through the process there were 2 key files that we needed. Once we got the files, did a join, did a summarization, it says 90-day, but in reality, insurance companies have 30-day. We gave it 90-day for our process to be certain that there were nothing sitting on the fence, that we didn't jump the gun. We gave them 90 days, so there's a 60 extra days, and we still found hundreds of thousands, some as old as 5 and 6 years old. So it can happen. This is what I'm talking about. What did we do? We automated that process. We automated it, and because the people that, again, back to the profile, there were a few people that said, you know what? We always thought that was acceptable, but it was kind of strange. So we'd like to clean up our own, and we let them be able to generate it on their own from that button and do their own monitoring. I'd have to say, though, initially, 90% of them said, no way, not happening. So, polling question number 3.
Okay, please answer the polling question. Don, we've got a couple of questions that did come in. I don't know if you can you see the questions? You should have a...
No, I think I have to minimize my screen if I do that. I don't want to really get messed up here.
It won't matter. They'll be able to see your screen.
Okay. See, it's not on top.
Okay, one of the questions is what to do if management considers the findings material, but the chief audit executive does not consider it reportable.
Okay, so the management considers it material, and audit does not consider it to be material?
The chief audit executive does not consider it reportable.
That's very interesting. So the staff is in a dilemma between those two locking horns, management and the chief auditor. I will have to say, you know, for 8 years I reported to other people. When I always made a promise to myself, if I ever made it to the chief audit executive level, I would listen to my staff first. always. And if there was no good reason why I couldn't follow the staff, I would have that conversation. But I would not say, you know what, we're too busy. Let's bring that up later, and then just put their suggestion in a box, you know. So I don't have an answer for you. I've never had that situation really happen.
Okay, we've got 88% have voted. We will be closing the poll in about 20 seconds, so please vote. 89% have voted. You must answer all the polling questions, and remember, it doesn't matter if your answer is right or wrong. It's not really a question of right or wrong. It's a question of answering the polling questions and qualifying for the CPE. So we'll leave it open another 10 seconds. And
if that person wants a better answer from me, they can send me an email, Jim.
okay. All right, we'll go ahead and we will close the poll. Okay. Share the results. It looks like 85% said trace the check back to find similar transactions. 11%, yeah, 11% said suggest the check be delivered to the payee immediately.
Yeah, I would do both.
Okay.
Didn't work.
Okay.
But we did trace it back.
All right, we'll go ahead and we will hide the results and turn it back to you.
Did anybody say ignore this as a financial issue?
1%.
How many contact the payee to ask if they want the money?
3%.
Get out of town. Now, you've crossed that CACM. That's management. You've crossed the line. If you're picking up the phone and calling somebody, you better have a very good reason for doing that.
Okay, you can show your screen now.
Okay. So I told you I do have a process that I loved, and I've had it for at least 10 years, maybe 20. This one is a little more, and it doesn't necessarily have to be for moving to continuous auditing. But this is called the CRISP-DM.
Don, click on show your screen. Right now the poll is still showing up there.
Okay, I'm on it.
Okay.
What happened? Show screen?
Yep.
On air, showing screen. It says I am.
Okay, let me see.
And then I briefly went off air. Now I'm on air, showing screen. Should I click on show screen again?
Yep.
Okay, it might have paused, but it says paused.
Yeah, you want to unpause it.
It says they can see it.
Okay, maybe it's just on my end.
Let's hope. On air, showing screen. Okay, another continuous process. So I've got to watch my time here, but this is
Are you there, Don? Don, we lost you. Hello, Don.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, can hear you now.
Okay, it said you muted me.
Okay. I'm still showing, yeah, everybody is still showing the polling question screen.
Yeah.
So I'm going to make myself presenter, and then I'm going to turn it back to you, make you the presenter.
Okay.
Show your screen.
Hang on. Oh. Did you get me? Ah.
Okay.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so when I mute, so now I need to show my presentation.
Right.
That seems to be when I have the problem, is when I click on that. Because I don't want to start over.
Okay. No, that's it. Cross-industry specialized processing.
Okay, so people were probably wondering, what the heck is he talking about? So you can see this is a very iterative, it's a tough word for me to say this morning, iterative or cyclical process. It's a constant moving from one area to another. Without that business understanding, you're just never going to get there. You can use mentors and stuff to help you on business and data, but clearly if you can't understand the business process, you're going to have a tough time auditing anything. So obviously the business side, you know, I just did some work for another client, and I read all their manuals. They were all automated. They were embedded in their systems. I got SAS reports. I got the audit reports. I was going through everything, and the one piece that I wanted was, what was the objective of this automated system in the first place? Nobody ever articulated it. Everybody just assumed, of course we want to automate that. So you really need to work that. And of course the data understanding starts the what data do I need, how am I going to get it, who's the custodian, what is the data governance rules of the organization, can I in fact put it on a laptop, can I actually take it out, you know. And I'm talking about raw data here. If you're working with a company that gives the auditors unrestricted access to a data mart, chances are that data mart has embedded rules. You'll need to review them because the administrator, when he pulls the data into the mart, is cleaning it up. The simplest example is duplicate payments. Of course, the database administrator is going to have an embedded routine to pull those out immediately and get them to the business people. So when you're doing an audit, you want the raw data. You want to see exactly what the people using the system and the data are seeing. Under the business understanding, you're trying to develop a list of what decisions are being made off of the data in that system. What decisions? Do I even know that any? You'll hear CEOs say, oh, I've been doing this for 30 years. I don't need some report or screenshot to tell me how to run this company. I don't put any in it. Hopefully those are few and far between, but they do exist. But then the auditor says, wow, that's interesting. We're spending a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of development, and nobody's using it. I find that hard to believe in this day and age. Somebody needs it and somebody's making decisions. You need to articulate it because you want to find out what's going on. The data preparation, of course, is getting it and getting it into a manner that your analysis can handle it. If you're using ACL and IDEA and some of the others, they can handle just about any data format you have out there. If they don't, you might want to rethink. Modeling, don't run the whole production, copy of the production data through your model as you get the processes worked out. That takes a lot of time. If you're working on a laptop, you may have 30 minutes sitting there while it runs through 10 or 15 or 20 million records trying to come up with an analysis. Use your sampling and pull out a representative sample so that you get an immediate turn back on the model that you're building and immediate discussion before you get interrupted, pulled away, end of day, end of week, you know, all that stuff that causes time. You know, 1 million records for most of these tools is nothing. Cut it to 1 million And then when you have your model, notice the cyclical arrows, then go get the full data and run it through. Evaluation, we talked about that. Don't ever assume that you're doing it right. Get people that are maybe not even involved in the process, run it by people, make certain before you start talking about, wow, this system is finding lots of duplicate payments. I told you I go way back. We had auditors running around about duplicate payments all the time until they realized that the system had never pulled in the checks clearing the bank into the process. So it's not uncommon. You send out a check, a claim check. 3 days later, people say never got the check and we need it now. Claims adjuster or claim handler gets another check. Now you got two out there and nobody stop pays on the one, or maybe they do. But always you need to think from both sides of the fence before you deploy that tool and start running it. So, and there's my little definition of data analytics. It's a science of examining raw data. The purpose is to determine if the data contains information. The information could be good news or bad news. Good news, we ran through 100 million checks, not one duplicate, and here's the criteria that we used. You know, management might like that. Okay, this is pretty old. Probably most of you are never going to use this, but I developed a template that personally, and way back when I'm looking at a system or participating in a re-engineering or process improvement, I like to keep tabs on this. Now, complex systems today, you notice how old it is. I say files used. Today, really, they're tables, lots of tables. But I kind of put through my little case study how that worked. So obviously somebody is keeping track of account status, new, renew, or cancel. The interesting thing is that went into the account master, never joined up with the daily transactions. So an auditor from the outside, in this case it's a state of Illinois insurance auditor, he does not know when he's looking at old receivables whether or not that account is active or not. He didn't even care. And we said, whoa, you need to know what's going on, and we found out that they were holding them on canceled accounts, 100% canceled. So there's, you know, in the input side and the output side, this is just a work tool for you, and then start identifying those key processes. You know, we want to know if the status is changing. Now, the account master is basically what the sales team and senior management use to track the total in force. So that's a very important file. The broker master's got all, you know, your insureds. Insureds have assigned brokers to, you know, represent them. But anyway, so this is a tool, and I throw that out there, and of course start tracking the output. In my example, I went to the chief operations officer and asked him if he had a list of open receivables on canceled accounts, and he said, why? They're canceled. Why would I care? And that gave me a clue that he's not on my team. And later, he started to figure it out when the CEO said, if this gets out, we might be putting on the striped suits and spending some time away from home. So, so anyway, I said you know, a lot of tips in here. This is for those of you that are wondering why you're not getting anywhere with your data analytics. Start with a high priority, high return project. I know a lot of sales people say, well, you got a little process, start there, and if you get successful, then move to the bigger. What happens? the management team starts saying, hey, we spent a lot of money on training, you've been gone for 3 weeks, how are the results coming? You go, well, we're just kind of getting our feet wet. Every project that I ever used, I did not have the luxury of starting with a baby. I had to start with a big process, and I needed a big return quick. So I'm not going to bore you with all these, but obviously efficiency and effectiveness, it doesn't say fraud. If you're doing things the right way on a regular basis, you'll find the abuse and the waste, and you'll probably even find a fraud every once in a while. Communicate throughout the company. Other people want to know what you're doing. They, in fact, may be future customers for you. They say, you know what, those auditors did a great job of turning that system inside and out. They looked at everything. We could use that on a couple of ours. So, again, don't turn these, just because you know T&E, and I know there's some people that know T&E, they turn it into a career. They replace the Treasury auditor, you know, to review those, and they take it over and they do it for the rest of time. That's not auditing. You need to be transferred out. So I say be brief, be thorough. I don't even know if I spelled that right. And be gone. Don't sit around forever. Move on to bigger and better activities, things that you're not doing. Exercise patience. We all have to live with a budget. I say don't leave any auditor behind, but in a 3-year plan, you should be able to explain to your staff when they will be pulled in to learn the tool. And always use the software provider, especially if you're paying for it. Don't be hesitant. You know, 20-minute rules and all that are great, but don't delay. They're your best feedback. I would use them regularly, but okay. So now we're going to kind of switch off into scripts, and you know, we used to call them programs or extracts. Over the years, you know, we picked up macros and scripts, but you know, good tools can dramatically reduce and sometimes eliminate the need for manually typing computer code. Yes, we're going to do one, and I'm going to run it, and you'll see it. So here's what a script looks like. Yes, I use IDEA. I don't think I need to apologize, but I do. This is, if you're in the editor, a live editor, it organizes your script for you. The words in red indicate user editable fields. These were selections, you know, that I picked when I did the process. So this process is importing an Excel file, and it's outputting it to the same name with the extension database. So that's what it looks like. It's nothing magical. After you work with these for a while, you'll actually be able to make edits without rerunning. So there's a polling question number 4. And I'm not going to stop my screen this time, Jim.
Okay, when working on data analysis projects, what's the key, most critical part? Please select one of those. Let me see if we have other questions there, Don.
Okay. Can you read them to me?
I can.
Thanks. I probably should have logged in with one of my other computers that's surrounding me, but I didn't.
Nope, no additional questions. There is a comment from an external auditor. As a rule, in his organization, they communicate issues to the board and the chief of the organization to communicate the issues to the management. Is the decision of the board or the chief of the organization?
Wow.
So,
Unheard of.
well, that's from an
Discuss them with management.
an external auditor. So
Yeah. I've worked with lots of external auditors, and the ones that did that usually get in deep, serious trouble with the chief audit executive.
okay, we have 89% have voted. Please go ahead and vote. We'll leave the poll open for about another 30 seconds.
That guy can send me an email too.
Okay. Well, you'll get...
Because this issue, my case study, I even quoted the external auditors. In the 56 years we've been auditing this company, none of our work has ever reflected anything like what Don is telling you. That was straight from their law department. See nothing, know nothing, can't comment.
Okay, so we have 89% have voted. We're going to leave the poll open for another 10 seconds. If you need to get CPE today, you must answer all the polling questions. So we'll be closing the polls in 5, 4, 3, 2. Polls are closed. I'm going to share the results. 68% said understanding the business process to be analyzed. 17% said getting the data from the client. And then understanding the level of reliance, 9%, and knowing how to ask for the data from the client, 6%. So I will go ahead and I will close.
I would go with that. My answer A is probably poorly worded.
Okay.
But the reality is you need to understand what questions the data, so that would be B. What are they using the data for?
Okay. All right. Well, that's
okay.
Okay. We'll go ahead and we'll hide the results. Okay. And you should.
So we're moving closer to data analytics now. So I need to introduce production program change controls. Yet you can say that only IT auditors know that kind of stuff. That's actually not true. Most staff people, if they're using a tool that the source is readily accessible, they know how easy it is to go in and make changes and say, you know what, the guy that built this just didn't know what he was doing, makes a change. Before you know it, you get results. You get a management response from somebody that doesn't care, and there you are, the chief auditor, standing in front of the board audit committee talking about a process. If you start to see your staff start to look down at their feet, start moving to the exit, you know that chances are somebody changed it and you were not even aware. So basically you need to take the source and put it in a secure place. Always keep the source. You need to compile it or make it an executable, and that's what you give to the staff. They can't change it. They'll have to come and ask you for the source file to change it. Could they rewrite the whole thing? Probably. But that would take a lot of work and collusion. That way, just like you recommend to your database administrators, I need clear production program change processes. You know, use a number, use the alphabet, I don't care, and indicate who has the authority to make that change. Compiler, a lot of computers don't have them, IDEA does, but basically it's going to make it very difficult. Once it's compiled, it's going to make it very difficult for somebody to reverse engineer that file. I'm not going to say it's impossible. I'm just going to say, you know, a compiler is a good thing. So in my demonstration, we will use the compiler of IDEA. Okay. So I usually get a lot of questions about this time is, can you create a dialog control box? Yes. And in fact, the first system that I built way back in, I'm just going to tell you when, 1977, with Jerry Myers and Rich Jones, we had 3 palm cards. What office do you want to go to? Every office had a 2-digit number, like 21 was Chicago, 31 was Cleveland, 41 was New York, and so the auditor would go in to a terminal, a 3270 terminal, and pull up the program and select which office. What function? I personally did 100% of the claims, but I also helped do underwriting, accounting, and agency commissions. So you had to pick which one you wanted, and then the scope period. That's a beginning date and an ending date. Most cases you'd use 1 year, so it'd be 0101 year to 0101 year. So and then you invoked it, and it went in and created all of your samples. It picked them. It picked control lists. It also populated your top summary to put your conclusions, and I explained, it also created the individual worksheets. The auditor would match it to the file they were working on, make their comments on that worksheet, attach it, give it to the management, they would review it, give them the responses, it would come back, and the auditor would tabulate it, and away they went. So dialog boxes are a great tool, and of course what happens if you use a dialog box? You're not going to be able to put it up against a task scheduler because it's going to ask for things. So I said, you know, I'm actually going to do all the live demonstrations at the end, so I don't want to keep ending up, you know, I don't want to keep ending up breaking, you know, my presentation. So ad hoc, I think I'd be surprised if anybody doesn't know what I'm talking about, but this is where you're just going to go in and maybe do some quick data mining, but you could also be using an outsourced service for this too. If you don't do it, I have worked for clients that actually they hired their external audit firm to use their data analysis people. So, you know, the ad hoc is pretty quick, and it's just to get a result and to find out what type of anomalies, high, low, old, you know, and it's a very quick way of increasing your knowledge of the system and the business processes, because you can actually get your hands on the data and things start to make, you know, clear. So, but after you have a bunch of these, all of a sudden you notice that the next time you do the audit, the next guy recreates it. He actually sits down and recreates it, and the chief auditor that's being asked to account for, you know, return on investment starts to see the argument in favor of making it repeatable. So automation of here's just a list. I mean, they could go on and on and on. If you use your elevator speech from the IPPF, you can start to think of things right there that could be done with this. In some cases, it's actually just a tool that internal audit's going to use. So it doesn't necessarily have to be an audit tool, but I would track all those successes because somebody somewhere along the line is going to say, you know, what are we getting for that investment? Because I always started with big ones, and generally I did simple data mining, I never got that question, and if I did, usually the CEO would answer it and say, when you start getting results like Don's auditors are getting, we'll let you ask that question, but in the meantime, trust me, we're getting our money's worth. A couple of times he said the findings justified my existence for the rest of time there. I said, pay me because I may not be here. But anyway, so repeatable. This is where it starts to get, you know, interesting, and you're going to take a successful ad hoc and you're going to bring it in to a tool that will let you run it over and over again. And again, like I said, once that happens, your heavy hitters can start addressing new areas, different issues, and the younger people can start running these analytics. I will, usually when I got to this point, several of my staff would be rather open that we don't want to be, I'll use a poor word, but one that they use, we're not a bunch of monkeys to sit there at these screens and do all this work. We go out and ask people in audit. And I said, well, I said, follow along with me. Every automated system, and probably in my life I've done probably 15, when they start to get results, the people responsible for that process ask if they could take ownership of the program. I said, absolutely. And here's what you do. In some cases, they did not want to use the tool that I used. Over the years, I've used a variety of tools. The last 15 years, I used primarily ACL and IDEA. And last 11 years, almost exclusively IDEA. I'm looking at my bookcase, and there's my ACL. But anyway, so if it's done right, somebody is going to say, you know what, I should have been monitoring that. And in fact, I call it managing it. Not only getting the issues, but going out there and resolving the issues. Do something about it. Don't just let people talk about they don't care. Because when people don't care, waste abuse starts to pull its way in, and away you go. I will say that, interestingly, today, one of my past clients, they're in the news. I was just blown away. I figured eventually the news people would figure out, because they have a system that's just not getting the results they wanted. But anyway, people will take it. If it's a bad idea, you didn't make a big deal, you didn't outsource it, you just say, you know what, we didn't understand the business process, kill that work. I don't know of any that I've ever done on that. I always got it done, and I usually made certain that I worked my process so I understood, was I going to learn something that other people did not? So I'll show that. Centralized. Okay. The centralized is not just getting the data, but it's also where are you going to run it, where are you going to store results, you know, and how are you going to make it, the operation, repeatable, or in this case, continuous, so you can run it on a schedule. Again, I always say shoot for the raw data. I do know people, I've done enough workshops, I ask this question. People say, oh, we don't even have to ask management for the data. If you do have to ask management, I always put an evergreen clause in it. That means you will provide this data set to me the first Monday of every month until you receive an order to stop. Okay, so get that up front. The CEO had to sign off on my requests because he was my administrative, and he always knew why, and he always signed off on it. But basically, that chased the thought away. So what did we use as our typical one-off type processes, we use the shared network drive that was on our network. So drive X was partitioned so that each department could have space. So I would submit a request saying, I need the account manual and I need the open invoices and the first Monday of every month, and I want them on the X drive under internal audit. So there was a space that they could put them to. Okay? So you don't need to overthink this. Obviously, other companies, this is somewhere where I would have that conversation with your CIO or somebody of that level to understand what is the most efficient and effective way to get the data, a copy of the data, to you on a regular basis. You're not going to use the real live production data. Heaven forbid. So continuous, which is the highest point. This is what we're striving for. Again, very few audit processes are going to get to this level. Like I said, I can count 15 of them, that I've done. Most of them were specific to a specific process, but in my early 3 years of being the data analytics guru for CNA insurance, I was doing probably, we had over 100 of these routines all chained together so that the auditors could get up and go and do an audit and know what they were doing. So from that ISACA data analytics, they have a continuous auditing activities, continuous control assessment, continuous risk assessment. Again, I look at it more of, auditing on the right, coming down to risk assessment underneath, coming up to management on the other side, and I see auditor overlapping in that risk assessment process. So areas that management, for whatever reason, has decided not to watch or monitor, I say audit if they feel that it's significant deficiency and that they are taking on a risk that they shouldn't. I believe you need to go forward and actually prove your point. Getting the board involved, they'll just make them do it. And that is not a good working relationship. Let's face it, regulators and external auditors, they don't have to see everybody 365 days out of the year. I had to work and operate in that company, and so they knew I would treat them fairly. I wouldn't be a pushover, and if I had an issue, I spoke up. I didn't run back and start writing up a bunch of things and then shipping them to them by email and everything. I would say, look, what you said confuses me. Either I don't know what's going on or you don't, but we need to get together and figure out what's going on. Okay, I'm going to flip through these real quickly because in a lot of cases you're not using this tool, but with IDEA specifically, which is not that different from others, there are 4 ways to make a routine repeatable. You can open up a blank editor if you know the scripting language and write it from scratch. You can use Notes++, which is a free editor download, write it there and then copy it over and paste it in there. Record the script. This is a function where IDEA has, when you start doing the routine, I want to import this file. I want the file, the first row to be headings. You toggle it on and everything you start doing, the Visual Basic Code will be copied, and when you're done, toggle it off and it will open up in your script editor ready to fine-tune, adjust, and start testing. A lot of this programs today have a history log. You can also go to the history log and cut and paste it into your editor if your system creates the scripting language as you're doing it from the keyboard. So, and then the last one is project overview. So I'm going to try to show as much of this as I can, and you can see here's the toggle on, toggle off, record macro to record right there. Right there is a screenshot that's got some of it. So in this case, I told you, open up a blank editor and start writing. That I would probably shoot an auditor if I found them doing that. But so to create a new script using the recorder, when you're ready to start the step-by-step, click once on the button. I explained all that. The editor is live so you can make adjustments and refine. So if it's live and you're on the phone and you brush across it and stuff, you're going to corrupt that thing pretty fast. Other things that you can do, this one's showing you kind of the screenshots of how you would do this from the history log. So you open up the database that you want. You then open up under the properties the history, and then you expand all of the history, and you determine if you just want certain processes or you want all the processes. So here I selected them, then I right-click the scripts that I want. It says copy just this one, copy the idea script for the selected task, or copy all of the idea script for this database. In many cases, if you may want all, but again, if you're just testing certain pieces, you can do whatever you want. So once you have that, you now need to save it as your file. And IDEA will give you two options to save it. You will definitely want to select the .iss, which stands for Idea System Source file. And optionally, you may want to, when it's done and you want to give it to your auditors to use, you will then save it as a .ise, which means it's an executable. And they'll only be able to run the script as you gave it to them. So the fourth way is create the script using the project overview. Project overview is information pulled from your history log, and it gives you a flow chart of all the processes that you've done. You go to Home, hit the project overview, it will pop up. You select, I want to create a macro, and start to highlight the boxes. I do not create visual scripts. I always create an idea script. Somebody's going to want to see it. I may want to share it. I always do that. So here's what it looks like. And again, I'm going to do this live. So select the routines to script in Project Overview. So I'm in Project Overview. I have selected the macro button right here. Oops. And it asked me if I wanted a visual or a idea script. I picked idea script, and then I start highlighting the routines that I want to do. If it's in red, it means that you did that and then you deleted that database. So if you deleted the database, you will not be able to record from the history or from Project Overview. So next, so when you leave, after you've picked the ones you want, IDEA will copy the Visual Basic to a new script, and you'll be sitting in that. So when I hit finish, it's going to run this routine, and it will give me a warning and I say, idea script you asked to be generated will be created when the process overview window is closed. So it's not a bad warning, it's a good, and it says, yes, I want you to write that script. I'm not a Visual Basic auditor or programmer or coder. I want you to do it. So you hit OK, and polling question. We got this one and one more polling question to do. And then I'm going to do some live stuff.
Okay, the fifth polling question. The presentation pointed out 3 ways to create a script. Which one is the easiest? Record while conducting the test, write using VBA knowledge, or copy from project overview, or copy from the history log?
It actually should say 4.
Yeah, 59% have voted. Let's check the questions. Okay, here's one for you, Don. Who makes a better audit data analyst, a finance person or an IT guy?
You really want me to answer that? The finance person.
Because they know their data.
That's right. And they know what decisions are being made. I'm generalizing, but I've had a lot of experience with that.
Okay, we've got 87% have voted.
When I was building the audit channel for the Institute of Internal Auditors, and it had a lot of heavy Visual Basic, I took the coder to a meeting, and as they went around the room pointing out what they wanted changed and what wasn't right, the coder sat in the back of the room and was done. And when we got done, he says, you want me to generate it and put it up there? And I go, yeah, because everybody was starting to leave. And I said, wait, we're going to look at what you wanted. And he put it up there. They were blown away. They were used to coders coming in and come back 3 months later and said, we lost what our notes were. What did you really want? Well, a good coder will sit there and do it during the meeting.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and close the poll and share the results. And it looks like 48% said copy from the history log, 37% record while conducting the test, and then 11% copy from the project overview, and 4% write using Visual Basic knowledge.
Okay. Must be some IT people that like Visual Basic. So kind of a mixture of that. If your tool doesn't have project overview, you probably don't know how easy it is to see a flow chart. But I will create one with project overview.
Okay, next.
For sure. We good to go?
It's still showing polling question 5.
Okay.
There you go. Again,
getting back to that ISACA paper, it talks about centralize where you're doing your process. And so with IDEA, you can actually put your macros, either keep them in the folder or you can actually put them up on a drop-down or right on your header row. So I just have some routines to kind of show that. So here, customize ribbon. So we're going to actually customize the ribbon. There's a whole function. If you don't know what you need, you can always hit the help button and it'll walk you right through it. So here's one I created, Don Custom and New Custom Group. You know, so I put one up there following the rules. I can bind it to the ribbon, create a custom group, So here's step by step for those of you that don't want to hit the help button. I basically copied them right out. There's a lot of steps. Also, good things to do, even if you, regardless of how you created the script, is to put messages in the script so people can see what it is that it's supposed to be doing. So there's how you do a message box. You just MSG-BOX, and then in quotes, put whatever you want. And it says this script imports and then summarizes high values from samples. Add an input box. Again, these are callouts, and so you can actually have the script stop and you can key punch or drop down from a selection. I don't know if I'll have enough time to show that. I do have a fully created script that does that. And then this is the task right here. Again, you can see how easy it is to change things by changing the, in that case I'm changing the parameter to 2,000. I think it was originally it was 20,000, but you can just go right in and create it, save it, compile it, run it, where you go. So these are the results of the message box and the input box. So here the idea script imports summarizes this direct extract sales over 10,000. I changed it to 2,000. I can enter the, the high value there. And then this is what the output looks like. Of course, it goes ahead and runs, generates it, and it's sales over 20,000. So let's get, I think I got one more question to do. So I'm going to run a task from a clock, and I'm going to use the Windows Task Scheduler to do that. But I put a warning here. Many antivirus programs will prevent you from running an automated script. Obviously, that's how you get viruses and stuff. That may explain why Don gets a lot of them. So I would always coordinate, when you're going to go to this level, coordinate it with the IT security group before you fire off executable objects. And they may want you to be outside of the firewall, or they have other routines for doing it. So I'm going to open up the control panel when I get to that step and do that. So here's polling question number 6. Then I'm going to jump into, I think we're going to jump right into the demonstration. There are lots of other task schedulers out there. You can do a Google. Some of them are free. Again, I would start to get other people's opinion before you start running those.
Okay, so what happens to your script that is set to run on the clock when an error callout is created? Briefly stops, then continues without the input, shuts down the server, sends a note to the script author, or stops running until the operator responds.
It could be a call out where it wants a variable. It's not just an error, it's an error or a call out.
Reminder, if you have any questions for Don, please post them in the questions box. I'll be monitoring those.
And if you're doing it at night, say at 12:01, your operator, whoever monitors your system, may need to know that you're doing that, because it may stop them from doing a backup or something while it's sitting there waiting for somebody to respond. And
we've got 82% have voted. Please cast your vote. We'll leave it open for about another 20 seconds or so. Remember, if you're looking for CPE for today, you must answer all the polling questions. Okay, and we will be closing the polls. And 5, 4, 3, 2. Polls are closing. Sharing the results. And it looks like 58% said stops running until the operator responds. Briefly stops when, it sends a note to the script author, 27%, 13% briefly stops, then continues without the input, and the last one, it shuts down the server.
How many said that?
2%.
2%. So the highest was 58?
58 stops running until the operator responds.
That is basically the answer I was looking for.
Okay.
So that gets nasty. And when you get into work and the phones are ringing and the emails are flying and people are in front of your desk, you know you did something. So like I said, you can find a lot of these task schedulers. Since I have Windows, I just use it. So I need to go to the control panel and open that up. So I hope I'm not going to have trouble. I wonder if I can just run it right on top. Are you still connected?
Yeah, I'm still connected.
Okay, good.
We have a couple of questions that came in. I want to see if you could answer
okay.
those before.
Sure.
One is, we're using SQL, Alteryx, and Tableau, not really very good audit tools, and compared to ACL and IDEA. You agree?
Well, that's a personal opinion, but you know me, Jim. Of course I agree.
Okay, and then the other question.
I like pictures too. I like nice graphics. I have had to sit with audit functions as they debate that stuff, and I said, seriously, you don't know what it's saying. How are you going to explain that, how it fits your business model?
Yeah, remember that all of these are just tools, and
they are tools.
You have to understand the tool in order to be able to explain it to both the your client as well as senior management. So
yeah.
The other question is the run script from clock option only available to IDEA server users?
No.
Okay.
I'm not on server. I should have pointed that out.
Okay.
They'll see that when I open IDEA.
Okay. All right. Back to you.
That's part of the centralized question, so it's actually a very good question.
Okay.
So down here we see, I hope you can see my screen, right? Schedule tasks.
I can see it.
Excellent. So that's where we're going to get it, but we first need to go create. I'm running kind of slow on time, so I'm going to create the object. Okay, so here's version 10. So over here, I'm missing the bottom piece. I need that. I'm going to close this for the time being and come back. I can get it after I create the object. Okay, now I can see the bottom. So the key thing is your File Explorer and your library. So I am in and it's of course not connected to IDEA server, so I'm not on a network, I'm not on a server, and I have two folders. I have the current project library, which is stuff I'm running on this machine, but I also could connect to a local library, and notice all the folders are the same. If I want to do something over here, I can also add it over here, and the next time I start a new audit, all of the things I put in the local library will automatically be in the new audit ready to use. If I'm connected to server, there's another set of buttons that look just like this, and it has all the folders. So your function needs to decide where you want to centralize all of your stuff, okay? And down here you can see, let me just close that up. You can see here's the data files just as the client gave them to me, okay? So they will always stay there. They're good to go. So let's do this journal entry detail. It's something I do a lot. So let me, I've already imported it. So here it is. Let's input. Okay, so there's some problems with this file. The first problems is, and this is just a very generic journal entry, but we're going to find out of balance journal entries. I have two. I didn't do a very good job of grabbing the file, so I'm going to delete columns 12 and 13 because they just look dumb. Okay, so delete. Yes. Now every time I push something across the database, the history log is grabbing it. Did I get it? And that last one's still in there. Oh, okay, column 13 was still in there. So I want to delete that. Then hit OK, hit yes. So that's kind of the first thing, just kind of cleaning it up, you know, with some import issues. The second two issues I have are a little more analytical in nature. I have a debit and a credit column, one, you know, for each. And we want to find out of balance journal entries, so we need to bring those two together. So I'm going to append a new field for me to use, amount. I'm going to leave it virtual numeric, because it's numeric, but I'm going to virtual. If I make a mistake in the formula, if I leave it virtual, I can come back and fix it. So there I've set it up. The amount field is going to have 2 decimals. If I left it 0, it would drop the pennies. The parameter is a term from the 50s. It's the equation editor. I want to write a quick equation. So I'm in the IDEA equation editor. Here's all the data elements that I have right down here to use. I want to pull debit together with my credits. And I can, now that is a Visual Basic script right there. I could have typed it. If I make a mistake typing it, it turns red. If I try to check the syntax, it says wrong. I hit OK. It says, I think your mistake is right there. So I'm going to put that in. And so now it's blue, so it's good. So I'll run the syntax checker. It says valid. Okay. Now I can run that across, hit OK, and it will record in the history. And so now I've appended, so I've added to the end an amount. Because this truly, it was a spreadsheet, but it's actually now a database. So you have to work like it's a database. So I just can't do a sum and do a bunch of moving stuff around. So I can visually look down and see that it looks like it ran fine, so I'm happy with it. The next challenge is I have the line item detail for all the journal entries. I need to go up to my audit tools, and in there I have summarization. If you don't know what summarization is, you hit help. You don't carry books and stuff around. So I want to do a sum on my journal entry. And I need something to total or not, but I do want the amount, because if it's working right, the amount will be 0. I can get a lot of additional information in my output result, max, min, average, variance. I can also add a lot of fields, but I'm not. I'm just going to let IDEA do its own thing. So hit OK. And so now I have a summarized file. It's hyperlinked. If I want to see those 25 records, there they are. But you notice it looks like everything balanced to 0. Had we done a check of the data when we imported it, we would have saw that the debits field does not equal the credit field in total. So I need to now find those. So I'm going to do a direct extraction. And so there I'm going to call it non-balancing journal entry by number. And now I want to bring up the equation editor. It doesn't call it parameter. It doesn't call it equation editor. It gives me an icon. I select on it, and it's a very simple process. I want to use this different or not equal. So I want from this result file, I want every case where it's something other than a 0. Again, I don't have to type it. I just click on it. I'll click on that, click too fast, and 0. Run the syntax checker, valid, push it, hit OK. There are the 4 journal entries. They're not that big, but there they are. So we've done the ad hoc routine. All of this is ad hoc. I now want to take it one step further, and I want to create that script. So I can, like I said, I could bring open the history file. You'll notice in the history file that as I was doing the screen commands, IDEA was writing the IDEA script code or the Visual Basic for application. It's all there. If I want it, I select it, I hit copy all of the script, otherwise it's just going to give it to me, and then it pops it into the editor. I come over here and I hit File, Save As, and then here give it a name. But notice that the default is ISS. I can come over here and I can select ISE. If I'm just testing it and everything, of course I'll keep it to ISS until I'm done. So I'm not going to, yeah, let's save it. What the heck? Save it is from history and hit save. Okay, so it's all there. I don't have a whole bunch of data files, so if I run this, it's going to go ahead and tell me that I've got errors. So, but I could go back to File, Build New IDEA Script. So now I'm going to make an object. From history, where am I going to put it? I'll put it on my desktop. I put everything on my desktop. Okay, so I'm going to create an executable and hit save. And now I should have that on there on my desktop. Whoops. So there it is. There's the executable. It's now an object, okay? So let's go now, let's go back to schedule this task. I want to open up the control panel. I want to go to System and Security. I want to go to Administrative Tools, and there's the Task Scheduler. Okay. I don't really need to refresh, so we don't need to do that. I want to create a basic task. Whoops. Okay. And it's proceeded to lock up on me. Did I lose you, Jim? Jim?
I'm still here.
Okay. Let me start it again. My task scheduler is locking up. Oh, there we go. Okay. So non-balancing, journal entry test. I don't need to put anything else in there. Hit next. I want to run it one time. I want next. I want to run it in 1 minute. Let's see if I... .53, hit next. Hit next. Get that program. Hit next. Hit finish. Oh, it's found an error already. I must not have scheduled it fast enough. So let's just go back, and I have a backup file. This one's only going to do the Excel import. That's all I saved. Okay, well, let's just do the Excel import then. Oh, I forgot to delete the files. I already had them. So it's finding all the files that I had. Because I needed to go over here to IDEA and delete everything. Now that's frustrating. Okay, so one of them is open, so it won't let me close it. Okay, so now let's try it since I cleared it out. Let's go to create a basic task. Non-val. Hit next. On time. Hit next. 57. Hit next. Hit next. Says it already exists. Says it already exists. Well, that's as far as I'm going to get, I guess. No.
Okay, somebody has asked Don if the instructions will be included in the slides, or can we obtain a detailed
Yeah,
walkthrough?
I have the step-by-step instructions.
Okay, so that can be
I'll put them
provided.
in the slide deck.
Okay.
In fact, I have a video of this recorded.
Okay.
Because I got too much stuff on my screen, apparently, that's causing the problems. It says the file already exists, so it's not going to let me run it. And I don't see it.
Maybe what we can do is we can provide the recording.
Yeah, I'll provide the recording.
Okay.
And the recording is 6 minutes long, and it takes you through all the steps. And of course, it worked that time.
Of course.
So, any more questions?
Nope. Somebody wrote, I was under the impression that scripts could only be scheduled if using the Idea Server version.
That's not true.
Not true. Okay. So that's all the questions that I have right now.
Now, you can do this with ACL and Excel. I have done presentations where all of them were done. The difference is there's no compiler in those projects or software, so you have to stack the scripts in a row. And as you can see, I'm having trouble scheduling the object. You can imagine how much trouble people have when they try to stack them, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and invariably it errors out because they didn't get them in the right order. And but this, honestly, I'm at a loss as to why this did not run.
All right. Well, if you send me the recording,
I will.
We can probably attach it to the recording of the webinar.
Yeah, that's the place to put it.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Back to the slides.
So there we are.
Okay, and the previous slide, I think, has the information about the one before this. There should be one there on smart cats. Okay, well, okay, conclusion. So what is your excuse? Okay, any additional questions that anybody might have?
So if you're doing a lot of scripts, you want to go look at a continuous monitoring solution, but if you're just doing a few and you're just testing and you have it under your control, you can do it the way I'm doing it. You start getting 10, 12 or more, you're going to want the organization to use a shared resource, and of course ACL and IDEA both can set you up with that.
Okay. Well, very good. We're at 1 o'clock, so Don, I want to thank you for today's presentation. And as an example here, when you're using technology, when things can go wrong, they will go wrong. So, it's not perfect, but Don has a recording of the scripts and creating them and running them. So we'll try to attach that to the recording that you'll all be receiving. As a reminder, you will, if you ask for CPE and answered all the polling questions, we will be sending out the confirmation email. It'll be coming from noreply@gensend.com. You must be able, or gensend.io, I'm sorry, and you must be able to receive emails from that, so you might have your IT department whitelist noreply@gensend.io. We'll be sending those out next week. And I want to thank everybody for joining us today. And
There.
Don will be doing several more webinars this year, and we look forward to him coming back. And thank you all for joining us today. Thanks. Bye.
Okay, so I want to show that out of balance journal entry test that we were trying to do during the presentation. So I've got IDEA open here, and first thing I need to do is go get the source file. And the problem I have is I only have one source file. So let's just go get it and add it. It's the it's the journal entry file in my folder, and it is an Excel file. So we've got it in our folder now. You can see it nicely nestled there, and so I need to import that, use my desktop wizards. I open up Microsoft Excel, I go find that file. It's the only one I've got, so I hit open, I hit next. Now the first row is field names, so I can click that. Any numeric fields that are blank, I want to force a 0 so I can work formulas against them. Hit OK, and there's the file. Now there's 3 challenges. One, I've got the line item detail, and I need 1 record per journal entry. Second, I've got the debit and the credit. I need to bring them together, and if they work, it'll be 0. And then the third thing is I've got a couple of fields that I brought in on the Excel export that I want to clean up. So let's get rid of those first. Open that up, delete, and column 13, delete. So now when I hit OK, it will force that across the file and record it in history. The second thing we want to do is bring our debit and credit together. Again, I bring up that field manipulation. I append a new value called amount. That's for the auditor to use. Debit and credit both have 2 decimals, so I'll fix this to 2. And I'll leave it virtual numeric. If I make a mistake in this formula, by leaving it virtual numeric, I can come back and fix the formula without having to undo everything. So debit minus credit, check the syntax, it passes, push it across the file. Okay, so we now have a new field at the end here. I just pick it up and drop it here, and it looks like that worked fine. So the last cleanup test we need is we need to collapse these to 1 row per record. So let's bring up our analysis, summarization, sum by journal entry number, sum by journal entry. The field to total, we do want that amount, and of course if it works, if it's in balance, it'll be 0. Debits equal to credits. So hit OK. We now have it. Looks like it all worked. However, we know that that file is out of balance, and the way we know that is if you bring open field statistics and field statistics, and we clear all of those. So if we just focus on our debit and the credit, we see that the net value, they're slightly off. So we know it's not in balance. Let's go back to data as our default. So let's now do that summarization under analysis, sum by journal entry, hit the amount, hit the OK. Hit yes, and we have sum by journal entry. If we come over here, we see we've got it. So the next thing is we want to do a direct extraction because we know that there's some that are not zero. So bring up the direct. Let's call it balance journal entry. Bring up our equation editor. Put our formula in. Check the syntax. Passes. Push it across the file. So there are the 4 journal entries that are out of balance. So the next thing I want to do is create the script. I can close everything up here and open up the project overview. So to me, the project overview is the easiest way to create the script, and that has been deleted. So let's create our macro. I want to see the coding, and I want these files right here. Hit finish. It says it'll be created when I leave. I've left, and there is the script. I want to save that source. Save as hit save, and then I want to create the object. So build new script.exe, because I'm going to use the object in the Windows task scheduler. So I want out of balance journal entry test. I'll go ahead and put that on my desktop and hit save. Okay, so now if I did everything right, I should be able to come over here to the library, and there is my source right there. I did show you in the slides that you can add a group folder here and list all of your scripts up here, or I think you can even use this space and put it up on the task. But so we only have one file, so we need to delete all of this stuff and get rid of it. Okay, so we're done with idea, so we can close that. And we now need to bring up the control panel. It's under Systems and Security. It's under Administrative Tools. I want to create a basic task. Give it a file name. Hit next. I can do it daily, weekly, monthly, or one time. I'm going to do it one time. I'm going to do it in 2 minutes, so make that 19. I hit next. I could start a program, browse, desktop, out of balance, hit open, hit next, hit finish. So now it's scheduled, and all I need to do now is close everything out and wait for it to get to 19 over here. It's at 17 now. When it gets to 19, it will open IDEA. It will go find my Excel file, import that file, and create an IDEA database. It will then clean up the file and run the direct extraction, and we should have the same result as we had before. So let's see if IDEA opens. We're at 18 right now.
18. Okay, we're at 19. We should see idea open here pretty soon. We're at 19. Okay, there, it's opening idea. So idea was closed, but the script will open it, found the file, imported it, cleaned it up, ran the direct extraction, and you can see there's the file right there. Everything cleaned up just the way we had it. So it worked just as we had it scheduled. So I hope you like that. Thank you.